Hello and welcome to another episode of the Young Tongues podcast. My name is Barbara Fountain and I am the founder and CEO of the Young Tongues, a peer-to-peer support group for young tongue cancer patients. And I come bearing another fabulous guest with me today, another young tongue. Lynsi, so lovely to have you.
Hello,
We've met before in
we
person,
have.
which is always really delightful when we get to meet in in-person meetups. It's been a while now. And I guess the first thing we always like to do when we start the podcast is get to know the person beyond the cancer diagnosis.
Mm.
So if you'd have to introduce yourself to someone, what would you tell them?
Um, so I'm Lynsi. I'm from Bedford, which is in the UK. Currently 33, but I got diagnosed at 31 the first time. I'm a dog mum. I've got three beautiful doggy babies, who may make some noise during the podcast. Um, I have done lots of different things in terms of career, but most recently I've actually gone to university to start studying to become an ODP, which is off the back of the experiences that I had with theatres. I thought, why not be one of those people helping us poor, can I swear?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
going to say, do you
poor,
want...
poor sods.
I was just going to say, do you want to explain what was it an ODP, do you call it?
ODP. So it's an operating department practitioner. So they are involved in the anaesthetic process, the scrub, and then recovery. So if you've ever watched telly programs and you see the people all dressed up passing the instruments over to the surgeon, that's an ODP. Um, or the people that you may have woken up to in recovery, most likely an ODP, or we're the people that assist the anaesthetist in getting everybody back to sleep. And yeah, sometimes
Amazing.
there'll be nurses, but the official title, if you've done that course as an ODP, is a protected title.
Absolutely. And am I right in thinking, remembering from our conversations, this was actually something that you got inspired to pursue after your initial diagnosis?
Definitely. So I've always had an interest in things medical and I've always kind of loved. I mean, I know Grey's Anatomy isn't a comparable, but I love it.
Oh, come on.
Um,
We all
I
I
mean,
love
it's the
Grey's
same
Anatomy
thing.
too.
So it's one of those things that I've always had an interest in. Never really knew how I'd get into it. Knew I definitely didn't want to do nursing, but didn't realise there was a whole area that is just for the cool stuff in theatres. So did a little bit of research after I was first diagnosed and treated, and kind of found myself applying for the course and was actually able to meet the ODP that looked after me in my first and third operations and be able to tell her that she's part of the reason why I'm here. So really, really nice to kind of see it from the other perspective as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now let's rewind. So let's go
All the way
back
back.
to the beginning, all the way back. So I think we're traveling back in time 3 years now. Is that about right?
So two for diagnosis, but in terms of the area on my tongue, it would have been 2017 I first
Oh my
noticed.
goodness. Okay, so in
Yeah.
that case, when did you first realise something was wrong and what was it that was bothering you in
So I
2017?
remember going on holiday with my family and having an area on my tongue that's really sensitive to certain foods. And it really bothered me on holiday. I think you're sitting around a pool, you're more conscious of things. And I Googled and cancer came up. And as someone that likes to catastrophize, in my head, it scared me. And I ended up going to like a walk-in centre when we got home and got told it's rushed. So walked away with a sigh of relief and was like, oh, I was being dramatic, it's fine. It was only kind of after consecutive appointments that I kept going back to my GP, each time getting told it's all fresh, here, have some cream, have this, have that. And in their defense, it would come and go. So kind of assumed it was a thing, went with it.
Yeah. So not typical of what we usually say, a persistent. So this was a come and
Yeah,
go.
it was
Yeah.
come and go, sensitivity. Um, Looking at the sensitivities, I kind of knew what triggered it. So things like Diet Coke, cheese onion crisps, chocolate, all things that cause like a burning pain. So I would not have them if I noticed that there was this mark on my tongue, and then it would go away and I'd cram as much in as possible and it would keep coming back. So I got to the point where I'd buy it over the counter, the gel. And then I went back and kind of thought maybe I'm B12 deficient because they can cause like persistent ulcers. And I thought there's got to be more to it. Had a blood test, all was fine. Started kind of trying to dig a bit deeper, but I just kept getting it's all thrush. So the one that I had that obviously turned to cancer, I definitely had it for about 6 months from what I can remember before I kind of really started to think this isn't normal, it's not going. Um, and I started Googling because my friend jokingly said, "Oh, it's probably cancer." And I thought, "Oh, what if it is?" And then when I Googled the symptoms, at that point I was getting jaw ache, and pain in my ear, and called up my GP, looked a lot on Young Tongues, started to really like see what was around them, people's stories and TikTok, and actually, I'm fully committed to it.
Yeah, but that's the bit when we first met that blew my mind because I
Yeah,
didn't realize that you had found young tongues before your diagnosis and that it was all the patient stories that
yeah,
was helping you put the puzzle together. And I was like, oh wow, that's really like I didn't realize we were able to have that sort of
much of an
impact. I was like, that's
impact.
really cool. So
Because it
yeah,
was just
anyhow,
one of those things where I was like, it can't be thrush. I'm not being fobbed up again. I thought maybe there's an infection if it's not the big C, because I'm too young. I don't hit the criteria for it. So I was like, let me have a little look into it more because the earache was the thing. Um, and the more and more I read, the more I was like, actually, scarily, this is starting to look like this could be it. And thankfully, I didn't have to advocate too much when I saw my GP because he looked at it and was like, I'm referring you. And I remember standing in the waiting room waiting for a blood form and just this whole panic take over because it was like the reality of all the things I'd read, all the things that I knew could happen to me in terms of the surgeries was all smacked me in the face in one go. Because as much as we make ourselves believe it's something, I don't think you're ever prepared to hear that it is what you think it is. You think, oh, I'm being dramatic. I've been told I'm dramatic my whole life. So I thought this is just me overreacting, but
yeah,
yeah.
no, totally get it. Nobody
And then
prepares you for the word cancer.
absolutely not. And I'm someone that if I know what I'm dealing with, I can deal with it. But it's the anxiety of the unknown that was the worst for me. So I ended up paying for a private appointment and saw a consultant, and he was like, "Oh, who are you going to be seeing?" And I said the name of my now consultant, and he was like, "Oh, he's amazing. He'll look after you." And was like, "Let me email him and let him know that you're coming in a week's time, and make sure he'll biopsy it for you." So at that point, I was like, "Okay, we both know what you're saying without you saying it."
Yeah.
And then I felt like a calm because I could then research, and I kind of knew, or I thought I knew what was about to happen, but I'd accepted that those were probably the results. And I met my consultant, and from the very first minute, I felt at ease with him. He has been amazing throughout my whole journey. And I mean, the biopsy, horrendous.
Yeah. It's a topic that
Oh,
keeps coming up, funnily
yeah.
enough.
And I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot. I've had a lot done. And the things I've had done are much more extensive than the biopsy. But I think it's like you build resilience as time goes on. And I think that first biopsy, I went in mentally was not prepared for this whole journey that I was about to embark. And I think it just hit me hard because it was almost that first bit of, why is this happening to me? This is horrible. And I just don't think I coped with it well. And probably now, if I had the same, well, I have had biopsies, they've been fine. So it's horrible. No one prepares you for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and absolutely. I think also like because we're told the sort of language used to prepare us for what this is going to feel like isn't quite doesn't quite represent the
no,
reality. And
I
I think
remember the words being hit by a bus, but I thought, well, I've not been hit by a bus, so how bad could it be? Like,
yeah, well, no, that was like after surgery. It was like more like it's going to be sore or it's going to, but not like you're going to scream your head off for 3 hours.
after the biopsy.
Yeah, after the
I remember just
biopsy.
dribbling soup like this. I couldn't eat. It was
Yeah.
awful. I've got some very good pictures. It was horrendous.
Oh, you're the queen of pictures, to be fair.
I know. As soon as I
What's
woke up in
that?
intensive care, I was like,
So anyhow, we have the diagnosis. I think from that point onwards, Your journey's quite traditional in that first part
Yeah.
because they did catch it fairly early, if I'm
So yeah, it
remembering.
was T2. So it
T2.
was quite deep. Um, so I think it went like 0.7 mil deep. So it was on the deep side that made it a T2 rather than a T1. So, but I had no lymph node involvement. Um, and yeah, my surgeon was like, "This is a walk in the park. You're young, you'll be fine." Like, very confident, which now we laugh at. But yeah, very optimistic. Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't do well.
And initially you did really well. You
I
had the
did, yeah.
surgery. Within a matter of weeks, you turned up at a Young Tongues meetup. Which, when I got introduced to you and I asked you, "Oh, how far out you are?" and I was like, "Oh, was it like a week after surgery you showed up?"
No,
I said,
it was
"I
about
was like
6 weeks, but it was
6 weeks."
post. I had the three ops, didn't I, in the end? And then,
Yes.
so I think it was about 4 weeks from the final op.
Well, you were talking remarkably. You still had some swelling, which I now know
Yeah.
because I've seen your your face
Yeah, I
differently.
look back at photos and my
But it's
face was a
really,
balloon.
but we were just sitting there looking at you, go like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" Like, but yeah, it was such a delight. So yes, tell us about your surgeries. So not quite
Yeah.
that straightforward.
No, so the first one went well. I responded quite like quickly after I got woken up. I think everything was in place because I got my medical records. So from what I can kind of work out, I was kind of ready to be moved out of ITU the following day. Um, I started complaining of pain, and they noticed that there was a bit of swelling. So I thought, oh, well, just keep an eye on it a bit longer. And then, so my surgery was on the Tuesday, and then by the Friday or by the Thursday evening, my tongue had changed colour. So where the flap was, it started to go black. They continued to monitor throughout the evening, and then I remember being taken down for emergency surgery on the Friday morning, um, which included an awake intubation, which was quite traumatic because, as fantastic as everybody was, I don't remember how much I was spoken to, or I don't remember knowing what was going to happen. And especially the nasal down, it's a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
because most of us, just for those listening, most of us, if not all of us, have those types of tubes fitted whilst you're asleep. So
yeah.
they
So
kind of
normally you'd
normally
go
have
in,
anaesthetic,
you'd
and
have a
then
lovely
it's
warm blanket. They'll put a cannula in. They'll put the like a bit of oxygen, free oxygen in you, and then you'll have the anesthetic go through your hand and then up into, and then you're asleep within seconds, and then we'll tube you. So it's normally a lovely, pleasant experience, but not the second time. Um, I remember then waking up a couple of days after, so they didn't wake me till the Sunday, and I was very confused as to how I'd missed a couple of days. They said that it went well. They salvaged the flap, and they, were confident that everything was
so
fine.
this was still the same donor site that you originally
Yeah,
had. They were able to rescue what was turning colour. Basically, they
yeah, they worked
pinked
their
back up.
magic and got it looking good. So obviously quite happy. The Sunday evening, I started getting this pain. They thought maybe it's the stitches, let's loosen them a bit. And then as the night went on, the colour changed. And I remember my intensive care nurse made a joke and was like, she goes, personally, I think it's failing. She goes, in my opinion, it looks black, but if I'm wrong, I'll go to Specsavers. So I remember this like little running joke, and I was really hoping one day she'd come in with glasses so that she was wrong. But sadly, I found out on the Monday that the flap had failed. Um, but they would give me 24 hours before they'd take me back down to surgery. And then that time they did say that they would have to use a different donor site, to which they used my right arm, which had a tattoo of my dog on, which I was really sad about because that was kind of the one thing I felt like I had control over, that they agreed to do it on my left arm. But it's fine. I was like, she loves trying to lick my mouth, so she'll probably enjoy being in there. So I accepted it and moved on. But during the surgery, I had a blood clot in my jugular, which then led to the flap dying again. So instead of taking from another site, they decided to take the fat, I think, from the inside of my mouth and kind of mash it together somehow to cover the gap. Um, and then there was no more surgeries after that. They let me rest up in ITU and then got me out of
Yes.
there as soon as.
God. Yeah, I remember you telling me now and I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it."
Yeah.
And also, we're told as a community quite often that flap fails are really, really
Oh, so rare.
rare, really rare. But we've had a surprisingly amount. So because I know Moss
Yeah,
had one fail and Olivia had one fail and at
there
least
are
two
a
or three
couple of
other.
us.
There's quite a few. Yeah, it's quite interesting. But also, yeah, it's just unfortunate when it happens. But also goes to show there are options there to try and
Yeah.
salvage. And in the end, I know you ended up with two lovely scars, one on each wrist.
It's like
So
my party trick now, like,
it's like,
woo!
ooh. But they were able to salvage using part of your cheek. So, and also the outcome of that was actually quite positive because, like I said, 6 weeks later you showed up. You were speaking very
Yeah.
clearly. Your speech is very clear. Um, and then am I? And then I can't quite remember. So you came to see us, and was there any talk about radiation at that point?
No, so because
No.
they got good margins and no lymph node involvement, they said kind of we'll do monitoring now,
Yep.
which at the time was more than happy with. And I can understand why my consultant didn't want to do that.
Yeah, and we're quite
Um,
similar in that sense that
yeah,
actually I had one lymph node involvement and I didn't have radiation. You had
yeah,
no lymph node involvement, good margins, all the ticks. So it would make total sense not to have radiation then,
absolutely.
and also to have that as that little ace in your back pocket in case you
Yeah,
should need it in the future. Shall
which I
we?
did.
Yeah, shall we fast forward to the future? So
Yeah,
I
so
remember us last catching up, and
September, wasn't it?
yeah, but you were really excited because you were telling me about the uni course and you really recovered and we all have challenges that come in between, but I was like, wow, yes, brilliant, this is amazing, what a fantastic story. And then it was not long after that I saw you, I suddenly saw some posts on Facebook and I was like, hold on a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So and enlighten me, like what
Um,
happened after we saw each other.
so I mean, I had complained about pain quite soon after my surgeries. Um, that same sensation was back, and we ruled out every other option first in terms of is it the tooth that's rubbing on the because my mouth isn't the same as your traditional flap. I've got a lot of where they took my teeth out, basically where my gum is. There's a lot of fat on top of that, so there was a potential that I was biting into it, and that was causing pain. Um, so I've had a couple of teeth removed. We did a bit of debulking. Then we arrived. So I had an MRI in the
Oh,
April actually.
I'm just going to
Well,
mention debulking is, for those that don't know, when you have a flap and it's slightly too big, they can go in and make it smaller. So just, sorry,
no, that's
continue.
fine. Um, I still kept complaining of it, and this is when my consultant is amazing. I will advocate for myself, and he will do what he can to be able to reassure me. And if that doesn't reassure me, he will carry out what needs to be done to check. So I'm very fortunate.
What kind
Um,
of pain was it? Like, where was the
so
pain?
eating, it was the same sensation I got years and years of before with certain foods would trigger it. Spicy, cheese and onion, chocolate, the same tick box things that I had before. So in my gut, I always felt like there was something more to it than just a
Right.
tooth
That's incredible.
or
That's really interesting.
and
Cause,
you know
yeah.
your own body, I think.
Yeah.
And you know, I went along, I was losing a lot of weight. So between my first diagnosis and the second, I lost, I think, 17 kilos. And although I was running, I couldn't eat enough because it hurt. So obviously the weight was coming off, which who doesn't love to lose weight, right? So
Yeah.
I, you know, I wasn't complaining too much about it, but the pain was becoming more of an issue as time went on. So in the April, my consultant sent me for an MRI and all came back clear. There was no concern. So, you know, I was like, that's great, but there's still something going on. And I was very convinced that I had dysplasia, which is what, or how I personally think my cancer began. Back in 2017, when I had those concerns, that to me was when it started. And it can come and go with lifestyle choices. So when you're eating better, dysplasia can get better, which is why I think when I stopped the food that triggered it, it improved, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
And dysplasia, we know, is a precancerous condition.
Absolutely.
And just to be clear, it doesn't always cause cancer. It can
It
turn into
can.
cancer, which is why there's protocols in place when you go to a dentist that they observe you and keep an eye on that dysplasia. So okay, so I guess that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So
So I just had a feeling, and again, when my consultant's good, he was like, right, okay, we'll biopsy. So I had a biopsy under my tongue where the fat pad is, so where your kind of wisdom tooth would be. Um, and I had that in July, got the results in August, and came back as moderate dysplasia. So I didn't want it to be moderate, but or dysplasia, but I was like, do you know what? I'm not going insane. This isn't post-surgical. There is something going on. So my I saw my consultant in the August, and at that point I had a really sore throat, and I had just been to the Taylor Swift concert, so we did wonder whether it was a bit of Taylor Swiftitis. So I had the camera down the nose, and other than like nodules in my vocal cords, everything looked as it should do, which was a relief. But I did notice an area at the back near my right tonsil that looked a bit red with little white flecks to it, which hadn't been there before. But it literally was in like a couple of weeks I'd noticed it. And at that point, my consultant went, well, I'll book you for surgery in September and I'll biopsy that whilst you're under. It'll be easier than trying to biopsy you awake. So, absolutely fine. 11th of September, I had the surgery. He lasered so much of my mouth and then done the biopsy at the back and went over with a laser.
and the lasers to basically manage the dysplasia, just for anyone.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it breaks up all the abnormal cells and hopefully you'll get a nice fresh layer of cells that will grow on the top and rewrite hopefully what bad stuff's happened. So I then went and done the walk, which is when I saw you in September. My consultant said that, he thought everything looked good. He wasn't too concerned. He's biopsy, but, crack on. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So started university, left my job, all on the 11th of October, and then went for my routine appointment on the 18th, sat down. Oh, are you on your own? And then there it was.
And you know that word? Oh, you're on your own. Oh
It's when you
no.
walk in and you see your cancer nurse there, and followed up with the look round the door to see if anyone's following you. I was like, oh no, I failed. I failed my biopsy. So, the team went through it. They said that it was a focus cancer. So it was so small, it would only have been picked up on microscope. So I thought, I've trusted my body. I knew something wasn't right. I've advocated, we've dealt with it. And in my head I felt really positive. Like I know my body, I've got this. Got sent for MRI because they also need to confirm that there's nothing more there, and that was fine. Um, Went to see my consultant and they said that there was a suspicious lymph node, but confused me because I was like, I don't have any. But it was at the back. So it was my retropharyngeal node, which isn't a popular one normally to be hit with. I think it
No.
naturally would travel down to this side.
Yeah, I have that lymph node pops up for me quite a bit, but I've had it both ultrasounded and biopsied, and I remember them saying it'd be really, really weird if it went there.
Yeah,
So, but this cancer is
I
really,
love
really
when you're
weird.
1%. So I got sent for a PET scan, and the PET scan showed that there was activity in that lymph node, but they also found a coincidental area, so at the back of my nose.
Oh,
So that
okay.
was a lovely surprise. So I went along, met with ENT, who, again, I mean, I'm just so lucky that the team at the hospital that I'm at are just, they're just great. And ENT were great. He done the camera, was like, I'm going to biopsy it. He was like, I think it's just your adenoid gland, like, node that never went down, but we'll biopsy it anyway. Yanked most of it out, I'm pretty certain it was huge. And it all came back clear. So good news. Um, then my consultant referred me to a different hospital because sadly radiotherapy can't be done at my local. So I had to leave their care, which was probably the worst part of the whole experience. Is you had this team, you trust them, and then you'll just get given to someone else, and that was really really tough.
And also, was that further away for you in terms of travel?
So on a clear run, an hour.
Yeah.
So it's just off the M25. So
Because
quite
I remember you were in between two NHS trusts as well, weren't you?
anyway, yeah.
Yes.
So
We'll talk more about that later because I
wonderful.
definitely want to pick up on that. But so you're handed over, wow, to a whole new team.
A whole
It's
new team.
a whole new bunch of people to build trust with.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can
And
see. Phew.
my oncologist knows their stuff, but their people skills lack. Um, and I remember going in and sitting down for my appointment to find out kind of how much radiotherapy I was going to have. So I got told it would be both sides of my neck, high dosage, same in my mouth. Um, I then got told I'd have to have chemo, which was never anything I discussed with my team in Bedford. But they decided that because of the lymph node being inoperable, that my best chance of being able to blast that lymph node was to have the chemo alongside. So during that, we had all the side effects. So, you go through the vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, all of them. And then she hit me with, oh, and you probably will be infertile. And I know they have to tell you. And she then went, we don't have time to store your eggs. And she then
I'm
went, is
so
that okay?
sorry.
She went, is that okay? And I went,
No,
well,
it's not
I
okay.
don't really have a choice, do I? And she went,
No.
not if you want to survive. And I appreciate to tell people, and having had experience working in the medical areas, you have to go through the side effects and the implications of what will be done to you. But to sit and tell a 33-year-old woman and her partner who doesn't have children that this potentially is going to stop us from having the future that I thought we would have could just be done with a bit more like sensitivity almost rather
Yeah.
than
I honestly, I don't understand. I'm in awe that you are able to talk about it like this and that you have this really sparkly positive attitude because it's not okay.
no,
No,
it's
it's
not.
not okay. It's not how it should be communicated. It's
No,
not. Fertility is not another tick box. It's
it's
not.
not. And for me, I've always
I'm
wanted to
just
be a
so.
mum,
Yeah.
and it is something that we hope to have in the future. So, we've got together and this was our plan. We've been hit with a cancer diagnosis, and part of my wanting to fight was to have the life together that we had hoped. So to then hear that your potential life that you'll have will be completely different to what you thought is really hard to then fight for, because I still would fight for my life, but I don't know how my life will be now. And going into treatment and not knowing
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing a bit, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you saw at the time that having children, having a family, gave you
my
beyond
purpose,
a purpose beyond what you already are.
yeah,
Um, and I totally can understand that and see that, and to have that pulled away
mm,
in a time where it's already stressful
yeah,
and actually having a purpose is really important in order for us to do well.
definitely,
So I think from what I'm hearing is that the way this was handled and the way this was communicated wasn't done with much empathy and
No,
love and kindness,
no.
more as a clinical checkbox.
Oh,
And
100%.
yeah, and I'm just basically all I can say. I'm just really sorry.
Yeah.
Really
And
shit.
it's
Really
so
shit.
hard. And I know that there's been this conversation on the group. And I know you've opened up about it in the past with children, and that having a child beyond your diagnosis, like, are we being selfish by wanting to have children? Because people can go, yeah, but you'll be hit by a bus tomorrow. But until you've been hit by the bus, which is what we have been, well, you know what it's like to be hit by that bus. So you've never been hit by a bus. So it is harder for us to make that decision and say, I'm going to do this and we're doing it for whatever reason, or we're not going to do it for whatever reason. But to then feel like you've had that ripped from you in a non-caring, empathetic environment was a kick in the gut. With everything
Yeah,
I'd gone through in the last 18 months,
yeah,
that was hard.
yeah. And also the treatment path seems really aggressive. Like I honestly
It's horrible.
I wasn't expecting it because because I'm just thinking, but it's just a single lymph node. But we all know that's how it travels and that's how it can end up metastasizing,
Mm,
I guess. But it's like, oh wow, that's because you're having radiation on both sides. That's already more than what we get usually first time around. You get it on one side, localized.
yeah,
So you're having both sides of your neck and in your mouth on high dosage. Am I assuming right in assuming you had cisplatin?
yeah, two
Yeah.
rounds. Or people go, oh, you only had two. Mm.
No, no.
Only two. Yeah,
No, and the thing is also, I think this is a misconception. It's like, okay, I am not a clinician, an oncologist, or anything, but from what I understand to what has been explained to me by researchers and things, is that um, chemo radiation in combination
it's
basic
savage.
it's savage. I mean, the radiation alone is savage, and people go, oh, the chemo was easy comparison to the radiation, but I think people don't realize is that having the chemo radiation makes the radiation worse.
Yeah,
That the radiation by itself, um not that it's ever easy because it's always savage, but
yeah.
we had this research project where we were sitting in the round and I was hearing this like it comes on sooner, the side effects, and the side effects come on more extreme than if it was I don't want to say just radiation, only radiation. No,
Yeah.
that's not right either. But
No, I know.
solely radiation, if that makes sense. Like
One treatment rather than a
one treatment
combined,
rather
yeah.
than combined. So,
Concurrent,
okay,
I think, is the word they like.
concurrent. There you go. Okay, so let's throw ourselves into that experience. I remember seeing
So,
some photos of you and being like, "Shit, is she gonna get through this?" How?
yeah, that's my little dog.
Oh, don't
Um,
worry.
so I obviously had the prep. So after I met with my oncologist, I got sent for my mask fitting, which people warned me that it was horrible. I quite liked it. It was lovely and warm. It felt a spa-like treatment. So any of the listeners that are concerned, think of it as a spa and a hot flannel that you're getting for free, courtesy to the taxpayer. It was lovely, obviously for UK.
Oh, I
Um,
love you. I love you so much.
and
Brilliant.
you
Okay.
get a free tattoo. A little,
Yes.
yeah. So I mean, it was great. I mean, they took one tattoo away but gave me another, so it all weighed itself up. Um, so I had that. There was then concerns of another lymph node after my CT scan for fitting. Thankfully, ultrasound showed that that was fine, so treatment was able to proceed. They insisted I had the peg because of the treatment plan. I went to my local hospital to have that put in. Somewhere along the line, something didn't quite go to plan, and I ended up bolt uprighting in the surgery. Because they sedate you, but I wanted to watch, so I didn't want to be too sedated. So I kind of would assume that there was local anaesthetic the area. So from the pain I had, I don't think they did. So I
But sorry, can I
felt
just
it.
highlight? I wanted to see what they were doing.
They sent you photos anyway. That was the sad
Yeah.
bit. My discharge had photos. I was like, I could have gone to sleep. So I moved during the procedure and it ended up perforating my stomach beyond the tube. So I got to spend a lovely 4 days in hospital just before I started chemo. So I went in on the Friday and got out Monday night. And that whole time I was nil by mouth. So I've had a peg fitted to keep me fed, but actually ended up not having food for 4 days. So didn't quite go to plan. So I went into chemo, I think, quite downtrodden
Yeah,
and not,
low on energy. And
yeah,
the thing that did you post on the group asking, is this normal
I
with the
don't think,
tube fitting, or was that
no,
someone else?
I
Sorry,
think someone
sometimes I get a bit
else.
muddled up, but yeah, I do remember something going slightly haywire. So
Yeah.
okay, but I assume overall probably still happy you had the tube later on.
If I didn't have it, I would have had to have a nose. I
Yeah.
couldn't eat. So started chemo on the 18th of December and
So
eight
it was over
hour,
Christmas.
I know, I was like, chemo, ho, ho. So I started that 8 hour infusion and then you have radiotherapy the same day and you continue with your radiotherapy every day for 6 weeks. So the only day I got off was Christmas, and but I had to go in on a Saturday to make up for it. So even New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I was there. So chemo hit me hard. By the time I got home, I was projectile vomiting. I couldn't move off the sofa. I couldn't eat. It was like the worst vomiting bug I ever, except you have zero energy. Um,
And you had no substance, right? You had nothing in your stomach to
nothing.
vomit. So it was probably
No.
that really horrible, painful stuff that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
oh
it was just
God.
really tough, and I and obviously most of the time you feel unwell, and I think where it's different for people that have chemo separately, so they'll do their rounds of radiation, then they'll have a break and have chemo, is you're not traveling every day. So you can lay in bed or on the sofa and be unwell, but I had to go me put in a car and travel an hour, not in traffic, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they loved giving me an afternoon slot when traffic on the M25 was beautiful. Um, so I'd have to travel an hour, sit in a waiting room for an hour, and then travel an hour home on top of feeling so unwell. So that was really tough.
Did they help you with nausea, anti sickness, and things like
They
that?
give you loads, and one of the ones that I had, so I found one particular drug was better, but they give you a steroid, which is fine if you're eating. But if you're not eating, that steroid just made me feel worse. So I decided not to take it any
And it
further.
is always like everyone has to try out and find the best fit with anti nausea, well, any sort of tablets as
Yeah.
well.
And the anti-sickness helped to a point on that first round, but there was only so much it would help. So, but then by kind of Boxing Day was my first time I was able to kind of eat a substantial amount of food that I would consider to be a meal. And then I had a really good day, like a week post chemo, where I took the Christmas tree down. I was like, gutted the house, tidied up, and was like, I've got this. This is easy. Like, I'm a week in, and then New Year's Eve just hit me. Yeah, it was very humbling sitting in A&E New Year's Eve, like laying on the floor, vomiting into a bowl. Um, yeah, it made me realize that it wasn't a walk in the park. So it kind of went on. There was good days and bad days, but as time went on, and then after the second hit of chemo, I mean, they reduced it down. So the sickness didn't start to about 3 days in, but then by that point, I had like uncontrollable thick saliva. I, it was like my token thing was to carry my emotional support bucket and toilet roll because I could not go seconds without having to constantly spit this awful silly string out of my mouth, and it was just awful. Look at some photos on my Instagram if anyone wants to see it. It was not pleasant.
It is a picture to behold. I mean, not many can pull it off, Lynsi, but there you
I
go.
mean, it was a good one, and the nosebleeds they were really delightful.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, I fortunately didn't suffer with too much pain within my mouth. I had really bad pain when my hair started to fall out. So I've lost kind of underneath where the beams
Yeah.
radiation went through. That was really painful the first couple of weeks as the hair fell out. But kind of beyond that, in terms of my mouth, because I wasn't able to eat because of the sickness, everything went through my peg.
Mm.
So I feel like I got off lightly, pain
I
wise.
don't think you got off lightly, but you just had different side effects. And that's the
Yeah,
thing. Well, every time when we've got new people joining and they ask what to expect from radiation and radiation chemo, we got all this big long of side effects, but you're not going to get them all.
no,
I mean, if you do, you're really unlucky. But
yeah,
in most cases, you're not going to get them all, and also you're not going to get them all at the same
same
severity.
time.
So, no, you didn't get off lightly. You just had a
Yeah, because they
different
were like,
experience.
pain relief, we'll give you whatever you want. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get some like patch it. Like, I was all prepared for the pain. The sickness, I wasn't prepared for that. And I hate being sick.
Mm,
So
mm,
it was really hard. And by a few days post second chemo, I then got admitted um, because I was so dehydrated and I'd lost a good few kilos in weight from the week before.
mm.
And they deemed I wasn't well enough to have treatment on the day of my appointment. So, as much as I hated being kept in hospital, being kept in there for that week was lovely for not having to travel. And
Yeah.
I still was unwell, and there wasn't a lot they can do for you. They can give you ondansetron that I can have at home. They could help me with fluids, but I could use my peg. But them not traveling made a massive difference for me.
Yeah. Well, and also having backup support there, professional, if
Yeah,
even just to be able to ask the question. So, yeah, no, I definitely see that.
and
And I think,
radiotherapy team would call me and go, "We're free now. Do you want to come down?"
yeah,
So I didn't have to wait. I mean, they were amazing. The actual radiographers are legends. They are
let's
so
give it up for
good.
the radiographers.
Oh,
Yeah.
they keep you going. If it wasn't for their happy smiling faces and their banging tunes, you wouldn't get me in there.
Honestly,
They're so patient.
we hear that so often, and I think we need to actually pay more tribute to the radiographers on this podcast because I don't know. I think you have to be a certain type of person to be a radiographer, and I do always get the impression they're all just incredibly happy, upbeat, smiley people, and they really help patients through the most horrendous experience. So glad you had a good team.
They were so lovely and they were so patient because I think one of the biggest fears for me was laying on the bed and needing to be sick. But you're pinned down, you're not moving anywhere. And it was that fear of like choking on my own vomit. But they would talk you through, they would keep me so calm. They knew days that I was particularly unwell, and they'd be like, "Do you want to do it now, or kind of move you around on the list a little bit if needed to?" They're just very good, very good.
Did it ever happen whilst you were on the table that you were like abort?
I never had to abort it, but there was definitely times when saliva would come up and I would have
Mm,
to bravely swallow it down. But that's one thing that, because I became so reliant upon the peg, it took me ages to use it. And then once I got on board with the peg, everything went through it. I wouldn't do sips of water. Nothing was coming in my mouth. I think I'm still so traumatized by the past 2 years that I just didn't want anything. And mentally, it was a block. So my swallow is quite bad. So it was having to take that brave step to start swallowing my own saliva after treatment. And
mm,
once I started doing that more, and I'd have to consciously go, swallow it in one, two, three, swallow. And once I got used to it, the
mm-hmm.
saliva definitely settled. So, any advice to people that are at that point where I was with my bucket and your tissue and your mouth's almost dribbling with it is hard, but just the more you swallow it,
The
the
better
more
it
you,
gets.
the more mentally you do it without realizing you're doing it because
Mm.
we're so conscious of how our mouth feels. Once you subconsciously start doing it, everything does get a bit better, a
Yeah,
little bit.
and because in everyday life we kind of swallow our saliva, we just don't
And you don't know
think
you're
about
doing
it.
it.
Yeah, you're not doing absolutely. Okay, so what I think is really important to point out at this point, as horrendous this experience
Mm.
is it's temporary and it too shall pass because you are here
Mm.
now. You're not
Yeah.
dribbling. You're not,
Well,
well, not to
got
that
no
extent.
saliva for that
You have
anymore.
no, the other way around. But
Yeah.
you are here now. And I think that's also really important and a really, like, just an awesome thing to reflect upon for anyone listening is like, it's temporary. Hang in
Yeah,
there. Speaking about your
absolutely.
swallow, what's your experience been like? Have you had a speech and language therapist? Have they been supportive in terms? Did you have one of those fancy images where they watch you swallow? You know, those internal.
No.
No, no. Oh, someone posted one of those the other day. I was like
And
fascinated. I
it's
was like,
so cool. I mean, I feel like this is going to sound awful, but like at my local hospital, we're really rare head and neck. Like, we're quite a big deal, I think, because we're not your standard patient. And where I went for treatment, we're not special. We're just another cancer patient, and they've got thousands. They don't see anyone else, so they do care, like, but
yes.
we're very different. And I think that was a reality for me of what good care I get from my local hospital. So, like my speech therapist, having two hospitals as my local, my language team are based at one that I don't go to for my regular checkups,
Mm-hmm.
but they are fantastic and really, really good. And I found that at the other hospital where I had radiotherapy, very friendly people, but it felt very tick box. Like there's nothing they can do for you when you're going through treatment. They can say, try and swallow water, but it's not helpful because if I
Mm.
could, I would. Like I'm not choosing to not do it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's really interesting. We've got a speech and language therapist coming on. Well, mostly talking about prehab, but I do think that's a question I will want to put to her in
mm,
terms like realistically, how much can you do for rehab, stroke prehab, whilst you're going through treatment, and how much actually comes later, but
yeah,
also when is it too late? Because
yeah.
that's another thing, isn't it? If you miss the boat. Actually, that this is a really nice segue onto
It is, and I
yeah.
mean, I all I kept getting was, but you have to keep eating, you have to keep drinking, you'll lose your swallow, and I get it, I understand what they're saying, use it or lose it, but that's not what you want to hear when you can't do it. And if I'm being honest, every time I had an appointment with them, I walked away feeling like a failure because they kept emphasizing that this is what you need to do, but I couldn't do it. And right now, I'm fighting for my life. If I don't have a swallow at the end of this, right now, I don't care. Obviously, I would care down the line, but you're lucky I'm turning up to radiation every day.
Yeah.
You trying to force me to drink sips of water, you've got no chance. And I almost got my back up to a point. And I remember with the dietitians as well that I was on 1,800 calories a day through 4 to 6. And as I got more mobile after treatment and I started to take dogs out for walks and was able to do more housework and things like that, I noticed that actually I'm hungry because my body is still using that amount of calories to heal, but everything I'm doing on top, I'm hungry, but I couldn't eat. So I remember saying, "Can I have more food delivered, please?" And the answer I got was, "No, start eating." And again, it was like, "But I'm not ready to eat." And they're like, "But if we fill you up in 4 to 6, you won't want to eat."
Mm.
And I'm like, I think you're completely missing the mental health aspect here of what happens to head and neck cancer patients during this whole process of what is being done with our mouths, and that there is a lot of trauma beyond what they're doing at that moment in time. Like we've all had surgeries and everything else, and our mouths aren't what they were pre-diagnosis. And I know for me personally, I really struggle with food now from kind of every avenue, and having someone go, "No, we're not going to give you food because you're not doing what we want you to do," I think is really unfair. But then it's on the flip side. So once I stopped using my peg and eventually went back onto food, I couldn't maintain enough in food. So I tried to fill up on forceps through my peg, but that then just made me vomit because my stomach almost got used to being fed forceps, and then when food came into it, the combination
Couldn't.
didn't work.
Yeah.
And now my poor dietitian is having the battle of trying to get me to take supplement like drinks, and I can't do it. I'm so traumatized by forceps and feeding tubes and my mouth and calories and weight loss that has left me with a lot more damage now than
Yeah. It sounds like you're still on that journey now to try and figure out how to rehabilitate yourself in terms of being able to eat
yeah,
and enjoy it, Lindsay.
yeah.
Remember how lovely
Remember
it
how good it was?
is.
So
Yes, but
I mean,
I can appreciate, and also I can appreciate it because also the whole mental thing of how it feels in your mouth, how it feels, how to swallow, the different textures, I don't know how distorted your taste is
yeah,
as well. So
don't
some
really have it.
things, yeah, some things will maybe taste different to what you expect. And I mean, everyone listening, no matter if you had tongue cancer or not, you will know what it's like if you put something in your mouth and you're expecting it to be sweet, and then suddenly it's metal. You spit it out.
Yeah,
So
and as well, so I I've never had radiotherapy, and you can read everyone's stories, but as you said, everyone has a different experience. So some people get their taste back within weeks. Others are fine with textures. Others can't chew, or there's all these different things. And trying to establish and pinpoint what is going on in your mouth and what's normal and what isn't. So I kept complaining again that something in my mouth wasn't right, and I got the radiotherapy. You've got the all clear. Your PET scan was clear. You're fine. Like, well, I think the PET scan was after, but they were like, it all looks okay. I actually pushed for another biopsy for under my tongue, and when I got my results back from my PET scan, it was clear of cancer, but the biopsy results show that I had moderate dysplasia again under my tongue that was only lasered back in September. So I knew something wasn't right. I knew some of the sensation I was getting was not necessarily just radiotherapy. So I had that done a week ago, my surgery, and I'm hoping that I do see an improvement. I've definitely noticed an improvement in drinking. I don't necessarily know if that's related to the surgery or if where things are being lasered, the muscles aren't as tight and I'm able to stretch a bit more. I'm not sure, or if it was just naturally always going to heal at this point. Who knows? But I'm hoping that's the last of it. But
well, we all hope that. We all wish that, honestly, and it's tough, but also what I also really take out of your story is how important, once again, self-advocating is,
yeah,
but also you know your body, you know your mouth, and even after having had radiation and chemo, where things are different and they will feel different, you still went, no, 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 no. There's something under my
yeah.
tongue. It's tingly. You need to check it out.
And there's little white marks. So I was like, I've done this
Yeah.
before multiple
Oh,
times.
yeah.
And this is where I'm lucky that my team are good and they
Yeah.
go, right, okay, we'll get you in, we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Because there is that chance it will do. And I think I really struggled with the 12 weeks between end of treatment and results because you are in limbo. You get the, oh, you're beating it. Well, you don't know because it might still be there because mine wasn't to mop up everything. It was to treat
To
active
treat.
cancer. And I've got the all clear. Obviously, there's this going on, but I think it's time to accept now that I am on a path of recovery, but potentially I will have a chronic illness with the dysplasia that is going to be probably something that's part of my life and will have to be something that will be managed potentially through surgeries, however often that may be. And that's really hard, really, really hard to kind of get on terms with because you think, I've done my time, I've taken my bit, I've got it twice. Like,
I've grinned and bared it.
I've,
I was
I've,
as
I've
pleasant as I
been
possibly could
positive.
be.
The first time with cancer, I did the whole, oh, it's made me a better person. This time I'm just bitter and I just want it to stop now. I've done my time.
Yeah. No, I
So,
feel you. I feel you there. Just before we close, I want to just circle back to something else that happened to you the first time round.
mm,
Because I was slightly shocked by it, but I have heard other patients having a similar experience. Now, so you live in an area, a postcode, where you have two NHS trusts quite close together
so they form under one.
under one.
So
But you've had
I can name
experience.
them, can't I? People will know
Um,
where I live.
yeah, yeah. Why
So
not?
yeah, if people know I live in Bedford, then they'll know.
Yes.
Yeah. So I fall under the Bedfordshire Trust. So my local hospital is Bedford. That's where I was diagnosed. That's where I see my consultant. But all of he works between both there and Luton. So all of Max Fax surgeries take place at Luton.
Yeah.
So it was quite bizarre going and being diagnosed in one and then being moved over to Luton for the bigger stuff.
Yes.
So
And am I right in thinking that there was a certain situation where you had to go back into hospital unexpected because of an infection,
infection
and suddenly the communication between the two hospitals kind
or
of,
lack of.
yeah, or lack of. Can you just like share your experience of that, because I think it's a really important issue that a lot of people in the UK aren't aware of,
Mm,
but also there actually are a lot of people who are going through that same pain, who where they are sort of split, and sometimes it's even worse where it's between two counties and
yeah,
it gets even more complicated. So just so people know that there's other people out there having to deal with the same
yeah. So
bureaucracy.
I obviously had my surgeries down at Luton. Um, Speech and language is all based at Luton, but they come to clinic in Bedford, but you can't see them necessarily at Bedford, unless it's on your consultant day. So when I went in for surgery, I met SLT because they had to check my swallow before I could go home. Dietitians were there. Um, I then got discharged from Luton and got told that I would now be transferred back to the Bedford team. During that 5 days I was home, I got an infection and ended up in my local A&E at Bedford, and then was admitted. I had no notes on the system. I had to kind of being very unwell, and my son and my sister had to explain to them all the stuff that had happened and what hospital, because there was no notes on their system beyond my diagnosis.
Even
So
though
they're
it's
the
the
same
same
trust.
trust.
Yeah. So they had two different systems. So um, it it was uncomfortable because you don't want to go through everything you've just gone through, and explain it all again. But they were the care very good, so got released. It got then to about it was after I saw you guys actually. We did the meet up in the September, and I remember you all talking about speech and language and all like the
So this is
physiotherapy.
this is for anyone who's had a gastrectomy and knows what happens from the moment that you go home to like 6 to 8 weeks later. So other than having to go into A&E for the infection, which wasn't part of the plan, you're not really you didn't really hear anything from
I didn't hear
anyone.
anything, so I was like, when you guys were talking about all these different things, I got a bit of FOMO. I think
Because I also asked you about your scars and who was changing the bandaging on them and who was cleaning them.
me.
Yeah, and you kind of looked at me blankly and you went like, "Well, me," and I was like, "You what? You
Yeah.
what?"
So I had no follow-up care, and obviously in terms of the infection, when you look back at pictures of how they were, it doesn't take a genius to work out where my infection came from. So I didn't know. And I know my friend, her son had cancer. And I mean, the community team were out, even like he had his port taken out, and they were there checking on that. And that's like quite minimal in comparison to
the the
our arms.
and you had two of them as well, not
Two
just
of
one.
them, plus my stomach, two of them,
Yes.
and my neck. So I had no follow ups. It's only after seeing you guys and you explaining all the stuff that you had, and I had that whole FOMO of, well, why am I not getting that? That I called my CNS nurse and said, well, I don't want to be, dramatic, but when do I see my consultant again? Because it's been however many, 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it was, and I've not seen anyone. No one's seen my arms other than being admitted. Like, is someone going to help me with my jaw opening or my tongue? What's happening? And I mean, she was mortified. And within about 2 hours, I started getting calls from speech and
From everyone.
language, from
From
every
everyone.
department. And she had an appointment for me to go in on Friday to see the consultant. So she was very good. And she could only apologise that sadly I wasn't transferred over.
Yeah.
So, and I get they've got hundreds of patients and
Oh no, no, and
they're
we're not
busy, and I'm
laying
not
blame, and
absolutely
we're not laying blame on the individual. We are laying blame on a system that is broken.
100%.
Because also, if you go on holiday in the UK, not long after surgery, and something happens and you shows up somewhere at an A&E and says, oh, my scar's reopened or anything, they can't access your medical
No,
records. And it's the NHS. It's like one, and I understand it's a lot more complicated like that, and every trust is slightly different. But one of the sort of positive murmurs that I have been hearing from some of the work that we've been doing on the National Cancer Plan and the government who's preparing, I heard a really I can name her. I was at an event yesterday where Ashley Dalton MP, who is, oh God, all these long titles, sub something to health and prevention. Sorry, I'm butchering this. But basically, she has a lot to do with the development of the cancer plan. She's also has got cancer herself and lived experience, which I think is really important. But she was also getting as irritated as everyone in the room. It's the fact that we have all these really highly complex IT systems and none of them marry up. And if someone moves house and into a different county, someone in the audience was saying it took something like 3 months for all of their medical records to be handed over. And this person said, look, I'm really lucky I didn't have a recurrence, but if I did, the people who want to help me can't because they have none of my notes. So,
and I think their argument is, but it takes time. But
I,
mine was, I noticed it in August, 11th of September, it was already cancer and had spread. So it happens quick. So actually,
yes.
3 months is the difference of
Yes, absolutely,
life
and
and
also
death.
for you, it there's basically a 6 to 8 week period of time where you should have gotten intervention and support that you didn't get, which could have and hopefully just by sheer luck didn't impact your long term quality of
Yeah,
life in terms of your development with your speech, but also in terms of development into how the scars heal and in secondary infections and all sorts of other problems.
yeah,
And I'm pretty sure your surgeon, who took great care to leave you with the most beautiful and neat of scars that he possibly could, wouldn't be very happy to
no,
know that nobody instructed you to go and see a nurse or I had to go to plastics where they sort of open all your bandaging, clean it, and put it back on. So
yeah.
so
And the
just
thing
by
is, and
sheer
I
luck.
don't know if, because I was in hospital so long, whether I didn't follow the normal pattern. So, I mean, I could be speaking out of turn and I could be saying, actually, I didn't leave hospital for 3 weeks. So,
No,
my
that makes no
this arm
difference.
was 2 weeks old at the time I left. So, it is hard to know.
Yeah.
But thankfully,
I had my
I
bandage.
recovered well.
Yeah, I had my bandages done for up to 6, 8 weeks after
Oh,
I left, and I was in hospital for a week and a half, so 10 days, and then I had it changed initially every 3 days, and then every 2 days, no, every 2 days and every 3 days, and then twice a week, and then I had to. Eventually, they sort of taught, but they taught me
yeah,
how to clean it out, how to keep everything sterile. And also
And yeah,
you got those I don't know, no, not everyone's scars the same, but mine, there was a bit of picking and cleaning that had to be done, which, let's be honest, there's no way I would have touched that. I struggled to look at my arm, let alone.
I mean, I was still pulling stitches out at about 9 weeks, 10 weeks post, because
You,
they start to stick out, and I'd be like, oh, and they were really long. So
ah, I didn't have any well, I must have had some
they
sort of
must have
stitches, but
dissolved.
yeah, I think I had dissolvable one because nothing came out.
So
Oh, well,
mine
me.
were dissolvable, but so I had the staples,
Yeah.
and then they were dissolvable, but they obviously just didn't dissolve and kept
Dis-
trying to work their way
Oh
out.
god, oh god. I don't think I would have coped. Well, maybe that
I mean,
did
I quite
happen.
enjoyed it.
Well, I know you do, but maybe that did happen, and just my subconscious has like really buried it really, really deep.
Yeah,
Because I have to admit, I'm squeamish as it is, and the arm for me was really. I mean, it still is. I'm even thinking about it is very squeamish. So,
yeah,
yeah. But anyhow, what I wanted to highlight is like this challenge that we have here in the UK. That is UK specific, between communication between different trusts, and what a challenge that can be for patients, and if you don't know
yeah.
what your care should be and what you're entitled to, and how many times you should be seen by who, how are you to know?
But that's the thing, because that's the advantages for surgery, is that you get told very quickly what your results were. So I think I got them. Well, it was the day that I ended up going into hospital with the infection. I got my results, and in my head, because I got the all clear, I thought, well, I can't go to my cancer nurse now because I don't have cancer. So I didn't really understand that they stay with you.
Yeah, and
I felt
I'm
like a
pulling.
fraud.
I know, but I'm pulling a face, but I get your logic. Because
Yeah,
also, yeah, okay, but no, you stay with them forever until you're
for a
signed
long
off.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, for, well, not forever, but for at least for the 5 years. But yeah, oh god, oh god.
I see them more than I see my friends at this point. Like,
Yeah, well, we don't want that to happen though for much longer. So
no,
yeah. So the last question that I want to put to you, that I like asking at the end, is in terms of where you are now.
mm.
Um, what are your hopes for the future, and what are the things that you're looking forward to doing?
So I'm getting married in November.
Ooh.
So very excited for that. Obviously I've touched on it about babies. Fingers crossed that happens for us in the future. Um, but if not, I think a lot of dogs. I think we'll be inundated with little sausage dogs. So that will be my outlet. You'll see me. You'll know if I don't get pregnant, I'll just have more puppies.
More puppies. Well, we'll just have to go on a Young Tongues dog walk at some point. Get everyone down
Absolutely.
to Luton.
Yeah, we can
Um,
get Ben down to bring his dog.
yeah, we have lots of dogs on the group. Quite often they will appear on virtual meetings and say hello.
Oh,
So, yeah, no, that'd be amazing. Oh, fabulous!
yeah.
And you have so many lovely sausage dogs already. You got two at
Yeah,
the moment,
I've
don't
got
you?
two, and then a Dalmatian crossed by Marana. So she's like our big dog, and then it's a bit like the Minions. She's like Gru, and then she has all these little dogs. So,
Amazing.
but yeah, possibly more dogs. The university I had to pause because I wasn't able to go in during treatment. So that's something I'll look to pick up in the future. But for now, I think it's just live for today and try and do as much fun stuff as I want to, and just enjoy
Yeah.
life, and try not to put too much pressure on it, because I don't know, you have a habit of trying to force yourself to go and do stuff because you should, but I want to do stuff now because I want to do it. If I
Yeah.
want to hang out with certain people, I will. If I don't, I won't.
You'll just hang out with your
Life has
dogs.
taught me that, exactly. Like, you've got to make other people happy, but you've got to make yourself happy first.
Oh, what a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah,
Lynsi, thank you so
that's
much for joining
okay.
us. I'm so glad you could come. We had this planned several times before, and every time I was like, just take a little bit of a moment, go through treatment,
Yeah,
and we'll touch base after. So I,
I think it was literally as I got diagnosed, wasn't it? Was the last time it
yes,
was
yeah,
booked in. I think it was And it's just,
within days, I think, and you said, actually, there's more happening, so I think we need to postpone. I was like, yes,
yeah.
we do. But I'm so glad to have had you on, and
Thank you for having me.
absolute delight. And I hope to see you in London sometime again soon. Maybe on another
Definitely.
walk in September. Who knows?
That would be nice. The weather was
Thank
good for us, wasn't it?
it was indeed. And for anyone listening who's wondering what are they talking about, in September, the Mouth Cancer Foundation celebrates its 20-year anniversary. Mouth Cancer Foundation is a dear friend of the Young Tongues. They also have a support group, but it's a more wider group of people in terms of all oral cancers, where we're like a bit niche in terms of tongues only. But every year, and this year as well, as part of their 20th anniversary, they have a 10K walk, and this year it's in Richmond Park, and the Young Tongues are showing up as a team to join in the celebrations, but you can also go directly onto the Mouth Cancer Foundation website and come along and join us and come and say hello. We also have a link on our, I was going to say on our website, don't go on our website, it's an awful website. Go on to Instagram, and then on the link tree there's a sign up form there if you want to come and join with the Young Tongues. Right, anyhow, on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us. We are going to go on summer break soon. So don't get in touch to be on the show just yet, because you probably won't get a reply from me anytime soon. But we've got a few more episodes to go, and then we'll be opening up for new guests in the autumn. So thank you so much for sticking around with us, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.